start off with my review of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I feel like I do need to read the copy that Swinny has. I don't normally do it. Read the copy that Swinny has in the run sheet. So this is, it sounds weird to say, but I guess, integot, alternate dimension, mechanical alter ego inteBOT reviews Insomniac's blockbuster sequel, which is incorrect. It's not a blockbuster sequel. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. We know he loved his first few hours of the game. What did he think of the whole thing?
I thought he finished it last time.
Wait, what is incorrect about saying blockbuster sequel?
Well, it's not a sequel.
A sequel? Yes, it is. It's a sequel to. It's a new sequel in the
a new sequel. Wait, are you getting a bit
sequel doesn't always mean the second game. It means just another game in the series.
Jerry.
I think it's like pretty inaccurate to say it's a sequel in this case.
Okay, it's a new Ratchet and Clank.
It's a continuation of the series,
Round
right?
one. That's a sequel.
Yeah, but it's not a like direct, because it takes a bit from 2016's remake, which is actually like not on the same timeline, and then also mixes in with
you just
the game
got
that
an
came
uppercut,
before.
Swinny.
No, that's not an uppercut. That's a miss. That's a fail.
No, I think the independent judge between us, Mike, has Mike has declared victory to me.
Mike's whipped by you, so he always takes his side.
Wait, hang on. I'm not, because I'd like to point out that I swear he finished it last week when he did the preview about it.
No.
Yeah, I thought he said
I covered the preview 2 weeks ago.
How can it be so cool? 2 weeks ago, whatever. And I'm like, how can it be so short? He's like, yeah, it's a short game. So I'm like, what are you reviewing today? You already told us about the game. You finished it.
Mike is the hype master. He's really hyping up the segment. So someone just jumping on. Why would you listen to the review? Number one, I only played a few hours when I did the impression last time.
I thought he finished it.
No. So that was 2 weeks ago. Then E3 happened. So we're not going to do the review because it's so much stuff in this episode.
Yeah,
so we'll keep the review for next week. I hadn't finished it at the time I did the impressions.
Okay, enough hype. Let's get to
it. All right. I mean, just like to continue your failure of being a hype master. This game, if you have a PS5, you should get this game. Why would you have a PS5 if you don't get this game? It's pretty simple. It's a great game. It's good platformer.
Yes.
If you've played the Ratchet and Clank series, you'll definitely love it. That's the overview. Now, I'll go into like what I loved, what I mehed about, and then what I hated about the game. Now, there's a lot to love. So obviously the first is the graphics of the game are incredible. I know it's so reductive and everyone said this, but it just looks like a CGI movie. It looks like, if you actually go back to the Ratchet and Clank movie that came out in 2016, I'd almost argue this looks better than that game. And this is running in real time on a console, which is just insane.
A lot better than the prequel?
Well, it's not. There's no prequel to this game.
Damn it! Nearly got him.
No, you didn't. And even going back to the 2016 remake on the PS4 with the 60 frames per second bump that you can have for, I think it's PS4 Pro and for the PS5, but PS5 for sure. You do notice the step up in this game. It is a true next gen game, and it's really interesting to see the developers at Insomniac come out and say, we are just barely scratching the surface of what we're doing with the graphics in this. Like, we really couldn't even, do more that they really wanted to. In terms of other things that I loved about this game, it's just very Moorish. You just start playing it and it's hard to put down. And part of it is about the loading, because the loading, in my view, just doesn't exist. It feels like they've artificially thought, well, we need to pause the action a little bit to get people to have a breath and then get back into it. And there are times where I even found myself sitting there going, oh, wait, like the cut scene is finished, the game's starting. Like, it just seamlessly goes through everything. You don't really look at it. It's like, a lot of Nintendo games do this where you go, wow, this looks incredible, this cutscene. And then it gets into the gameplay and you're like, oh, you can tell that this is the game now. It's very distinct, the difference between those two things. And for me, I really powered through this game. It's not a very long game, and I'll get back to that. But, I would play this in 2 to 3 hour blocks, and it's not difficult at all. It doesn't feel very frustrating to me, like at least the gameplay and just how the game plays out. Other things, the DualSense, it's such a cool implementation of the DualSense. Overall, I am not as hyped about the DualSense as other people are. I think a lot of it is quite gimmicky, and I don't really think it's something that, Xbox should be worried about, releasing a new version of the Series controller, with a lot of the features. Still, I think the best thing about the controller is the triggers. They're just it's very cool, the sort of the sense that they can tighten them up and loosen them and do things like that. But it is a very good implementation, and you'd expect that as a sort of first party developer. In terms of characters, awesome set of characters. Love Rivet and Kit. I think, this game, it's like the 27th, I think, in the series of Ratchet and Clank. So you can tell that the team, they love this game and the lore of this game. And I think they had a really fun time coming up with a new set of characters. So Rivet and Kit being alternate dimensions of Ratchet and Clank. And, it's kind of a bit darker, the story between those two. I won't spoil anything, but it's just very, very cool. And as I said with the impressions, and you play this through, I haven't played very much of any other Ratchet and Clank game. And this game is such a good introduction. And it's so smart that they've done it like this, where, a lot of people, maybe they're jumping on PS5, like Swinny probably will grab a PS5 rather than a PS4. I don't think you've played many of the Ratchet games. It's such a cool entry point to the series. And they've played a lot around with the lore of the game and linking it back to the history of the game. So I think it's just really fun for a creator where you go, oh, okay, we're in an alternate dimension. So we can view other aspects of a character that exist in our dimension to just, bring things out. And, if you're really familiar with the series, I'm sure that's like people really, get that resonance with it. But even for me, it's really funny to see, okay, this dude's a pirate in this dimension and totally different character in another. And it's just, quite funny. Other things I love, like this is a next gen game. Like we need more next gen games. And I do laugh when people talk about, this game could be put into PS4. It could be put into PS4 to me, not as an extreme as this, but it's like Tony Hawk going on the GBA. It's like still the core of it's Tony Hawk, the levels, but it's isometric now. It's different. It's not the same game. And some of the mechanics that they use in this game and just the visuals, you lose so much from the seamless transitions. They would have to put, I think, more cutscenes instead of scenes where you can actually control the action. And it just would be a far inferior game. And I understand there's 110 plus million people on PS4, but you do need, I think, some exclusives on your console. It's a bit weird to not have any. In terms of voice acting, fantastic. I usually don't really love voice acting in games. For whatever reason, this game, all the characters, it all felt seamless. It's not a long game, so I think it kind of benefits from that. But, all the voice acting very much on point, just on the length of the game. I personally love that this is not a 40-hour, 50-hour, 60-hour plus game. I am so sick of like every game feeling like they need to add in, pack in value. I know that you've sort of, I don't know how hard you've been on this, Winnie, but like with Assassin's Creed and just games like that, just padding things out. I'm not a huge fan of that at all. And this game, it is a bit of a collectathon at some points, but it's a collectathon you don't have to participate in. But everyone that I hear talking about this game, and myself included, you just feel compelled to go back and, I want to get all the golden bolts, or I want to do this. Everything's just very seamless and frictionless in this game.
The thing with that, though, is there's not that many collectathons anymore anyway. So there's people that like those kind of games, and they don't get many of them anymore. So that's not a negative to me. That's like, well, if people want that, as you said, it's optional, then, hey, there's a new one of these games that people that like that stuff.
Yeah, and I very much love that. Optional, and I think collectathon is like almost a negative word now, just because of, I probably the one that everyone talks about is Donkey Kong Country 64. It's certainly not like frustrating. And the last thing that I'll say that I loved is that it recognizes itself as a game and it's meant to be fun. So without spoiling too much, but you go between Rivet and Ratchet and they're like alternative dimension versions of each other. And as you get weapons and, the weapons have skill trees and the weapons are awesome in this game. When you unlock something as Rivet, it unlocks for Ratchet as well when you go back to Ratchet gameplay.
Interesting.
And there's a comment in the game and it's tongue in cheek. It's just like, hey, how does this work? I don't really understand how this is working, Like, how do I have this new gun? But I'm like, thank God they did this. Because when I actually got some stuff and then I went back to the other character, I was thinking, oh, shit. It's like, because it doesn't make any sense. Why would the other character have that gun? I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. I just really wanted to use that. I just upgraded it. And then I went to the gun and it's like, oh, it's there. I'm like, sweet.
That's awesome.
And it kind of like,
it's like they handled it in a cool...
It reminds me of Doom 2016, like the opening of that game, they're talking about the story and then the Doomslaver is just like, basically fuck that and just like throws the monitor away. And And Smash is like, yeah, it's just a fucking game. Just play the fucking game. It's fun. It's not every game has to have a crazy story. So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting segue just into what I'm meh about. The writing, like maybe for some people they'll find it really funny or just that kind of, tongue-in-cheek writing all the way through it. I just ultimately found it a bit basic. It's a bit straightforward. There are no real compelling hooks. The twists in the game felt super, super obvious that they were coming. Not terrible, but like I said, it's a bit meh for me. Another one.
You're also the person that expects Schindler's List from every video game. So.
No, but to be fair, Swinny, like I have a very high standard on story writing and things like that. So that is fair criticism. And like I said, some people, I think they might like it. I didn't say I hated it. I just meh about it. The other meh is the bugs. So weird that there's so many bugs in this game. Like I actually was really surprised. Like to a point where I'm actually shocked that more people don't make mention of it and it hasn't impacted the scores for the game because it's very highly rated. I look at it as like, and this is why I say it's a meh. It's like they will fix it. I'm very confident that they'll fix the bugs, but quite often I'll find myself just getting trapped in the game, in the platforming of the game. Like you fall in between something and then, Ratchet's just spinning around like insane, like it's almost cyberpunk-esque. Bugs, but the game really, I think it's just so charming overall, to a lot of people that, they just look past it. And they do seem to be pretty smart because if I got stuck and then I just left the controller for like literally 3 seconds, my character would die. So I felt like they actually knew that there were bugs in it because you would never program something like that into a game. It doesn't make any sense, right? But it's like, as if the player model can't move and there's no input, the game just kills you straight away. So it's like kind of an interesting thing that it works like that. The rift mechanic, another thing.
Catch-all
what was
exception. It's one of those catch-all exceptions.
Yeah, I think so. I honestly think, it's the finally, clause. With the rift mechanic, for me, it's like, and I know I'm a bit of a Nintendo shield wearing a Nintendo, and all Nintendo stuff behind me, but one thing I love about Nintendo, especially their first party games, they'll have a concept and then they'll flesh it out and fully, go deep on it and they might move on. It might just be like one level where they do that. Like a lot of Mario games do that. I feel like with the rift mechanic, so this idea of like being able to open up dimensions, move into them or pull your own dimension closer to you and move around in your dimension, it just really wasn't explored in a way that was creative or fully. Like it felt like, and I don't think I'll be the first to say this, but I just felt like it was a grappling hook in a lot of ways, or just like a portal to go into another universe, but had nothing integral about the gameplay that set it apart. And it, to me, is such a shame that they did not explore it in an interesting way. And if they they will make another follow-up to this game and maybe an actual sequel. I just think like hopefully that's what they do because, without spoiling anything, it's really late in the game where you feel like you have your whole arsenal and then, you can actually do stuff with it. Other things I went a bit meh about, and I'll kind of combine these together, but like the platforming, then there's separate Clank sections and separate like hacking puzzles. And they're all a bit like, and it sounds crazy because I did love this game, but platforming and level design, it just is so by the numbers. It's very few areas I ever felt like were very creative or interesting or throwing something at me. It felt very much like almost like on rails. I'm not expecting every game to be like an open world game or anything like that. It's just more that there was nothing the game was throwing at me where I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. You've put this in front of me and then I've gone, oh, I need these 3 things to put these together and then get through. And that's what I always look for in platforming games. It's how do you use the mechanics of the game that it gives you to then explore creatively in different ways. And it just kind of doesn't hit the mark too well for me. Like the Clank puzzle sections, I mean, the best descriptor that I could have is if you've played the Breath of the Wild shrines, it's like the most basic shrines, just like 3 in a row, like one after the other. Like they are like, I'm not very smart. These are just like so easy to solve. Like I was actually on like teleconferences at work and stuff, and I was just playing it to the side. I wasn't even paying attention to the game at all because I was presenting in some, but it was just so easy. I was just like grab this, move that. And it's almost like you have no real optionality in the puzzle. It's like you can only do these things or else you can't even do anything in the puzzle. So it's like, well, I have to grab that thing because there's nothing else I can literally do. So it was a bit of a shame. And the hacking ones are interesting. I didn't mind them. I've heard a lot of people getting like motion sickness from them because you have a perspective. It's like you're a little spider that crawls around trying to kill viruses in this cyber world. And as you move, it really fluidly moves upside down and the whole world will move around you and like really quickly. So even when I was playing, I was like, whoa, this is really crazy. It'd be cool in VR. But yeah, a lot of people have got motion sickness from it. And again, it's something, you know, like the great thing about this game, and I'll whack this in the things that I love, the accessibility, the options, it gives you lots of space to do different things in this game and skip bits. And you can actually skip these puzzles and you can skip them and still get all the rewards from them without doing anything. So I feel like they kind of almost recognize some people won't like these. So like, let's just give them the ability to skip. And
it's also probably for smaller children as well.
That's true. And just on that, so like the last kind of meh thing is the game is just too easy. It's like too easy, and I really mean it in this way of it's way easier than like a Mario Odyssey. And in the sense that there's nothing in this game that's hard. You can crank the difficulty up, but there's nothing challenging in this game. Whereas at least with even Odyssey, there's some kind of, you know, late game, very like extra, way past the rolling credits. That's, you know, it's some platforming skill that you have to complete it. And you absolutely do not need to complete it if you want to play the game. Whereas
are there any tough trophies or anything like that?
It's so straightforward. Like everyone gets a platinum in this game if you play it for like 15 hours or so. The hardest thing is there's a weird trophy that you have to get the platinum where the descriptor is a bit weird and it's sort of about reflecting bullets or reflecting, and people don't really understand what it means. So they're trying to shoot everyone and like get it to ricochet off other people. It's really, I think you just have to put your shield up and let the bullets bounce off your shield to get that trophy. But literally that's the hardest trophy that everyone talks about. Like everything else, and this is kind of what I'm saying, the game's too easy. It's like everything is marked on the map. It's like, here's what you need to get. Here's what you need to get. It's not like hidden. So you know where it is. And then just to round it out, like what I hated about the game, and then, you know, it's a bit harsh, but I'm just trying to be edgelord. Like, and you know, it's kind of all around the same thing. It's just that to me, there's nothing like magical about this game. And I know that's a high bar, but to me, I don't understand how people could say this is like a 10 out of 10 game. Like to me, the game has no X factor. There's nothing so compelling in this game. It's very much a game where I feel like in 5 years' time, people go, yeah, that was a good game. Yeah, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Wow, great game. But not like a game of a generation or a game of the year. I do think it will factor into the game of the year. I think it will be one of the nominees. I'm very much thinking it will be. But I couldn't see this as a game of the year at all, especially when you've got other creative games coming out. And you know, it's hard for me not to compare it to Astro, given that Astro comes with a console. To me, in almost every way, Astro feels superior to this game. More creative, you know, puzzles, more creative gameplay, and it's also a platformer. The biggest thing is probably Astro, like the graphics in Astro, whilst being great, you know, they are another level with Ratchet and Clank. They are so insane in Ratchet and Clank. And then just like the last thing that I hate, I'm not a big Marvel movie fan. And in a way, it kind of actually reminds me of a Marvel movie, this game. It's just like a popcorn blockbuster, highly polished, but kind of doesn't have an edge to me to like grip me into and actually like, you know, fully go, wow, this is totally amazing 10 out of 10 game. But having said all of that, as I said at the start, I totally recommend this game. You know, really, really enjoyed it. And just feels like a no-brainer on the PS5 to show the difference from a PS4.
Do you think it's worth $110?
So, I mean, like, I don't currently have my copy. And I would buy this game again for like $30 or $40. I think that's a really hard one because I don't like judging games on their dollar value, even though I might be the most insane person buying a game for certain prices and not buying it for others. I just think it's like you need to talk about what the game's like, and then it's up to you what you think the value is. I actually hate the whole, the game's 100 hours, so I get my dollar per hour value. I think that's insane to look at.
I'm not talking dollar per value. I'm just saying general.
I know. I'm just trying to call that out, like specifically that point.
That amount.
For me, no, it's not worth $110 personally, but I think it's a very personal thing. I think if you look at Astro Astro, I played for like 10 hours, I think, in the end to do everything platinum that. I think this game's maybe 15, 20 hours to platinum. So you say double, right?
But he paid $750 for Astro.
So don't laugh at Astro, man. It's going to go down.
I'm not laughing. It's great.
The trajectory the PS5 is going, Astro will be 100 million, sales units. That's how it's going to get counted. It's going to be one of the best selling games of all time. So like the way for me, for people to look at it is go, what did you think of Astro? If you've got a PS5, you've got Astro, would you pay, $110 for double the amount of content for Astro? And I think the answer would be no for most people in that way, but there's not many games out there. So
thank you, member for Big Week in Gaming, for that
political answer. So you sound like a politician.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I want to be clear that it's like, for me, I don't think of it like that. So it's kind of like, for me, no. But for other people, 100%.
Thank you. That's what I was wanting to know.
Okay. You're like a reporter. Yes or no question.
That's all I will quote. No.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's move on to our final segment.